everybody. So I'm going to be reviewing my cognitive linguistics disorders on-call notebook. I'm pretty excited about this because I worked really hard, and it's always nice to have some things that you can just grab on the go and be prepared to do therapy. So here is my statement of cultural appropriateness. All of the activities that are included in this on-call notebook are suitable for any individual who may be requiring skilled cognitive treatment. Any individual, despite race, socioeconomic status, gender, educational level, etc., can engage in the tasks that are included in this notebook. None of the tasks included contain gender or cultural biases, making them appropriate for most of our clients. All activities address a cognitive function within a specific domain without containing cultural themes, which could clearly skew clinical relevance to the patient. None of the activities are specific to male versus male, or male versus female, or individuals from specific regions from the country or world. The only factor that may prevent an individual from completing an activity from this resource would be the severity of injury or deficit. In the event that an individual couldn't complete a task from this resource, then it would be my job to make proper adaptations to ensure that this individual's needs could be met. So here is my first tab, and it is attention. For my test, I have the trail making part A. Then I also have the trail making part B. I have the Moss attention rating scale. And I actually have this in multiple languages. This little handy resource just is a quick review for me, and I'm actually going to pull it out. It has the different types of attention that we may have. It has some compensatory strategies that can be used. Here are some ideas for activities that could be used. And it breaks it down actually to what type of issues that the client may be having. So task for targeting attention skills, using a finger to follow when reading, changing the pace of reading, different stuff like that. Then we have those who may have some issues with their auditory comprehension or reading. And in that case, we could do visual attention strategies, different things like that. Attention process training, we could use I Spy books, the Little Things app, math story problem. I just like that this gives us multiple things, and when I played the game Fruit Ninja, I never thought that that would be something that could be used to work on attention, and that could actually be something that I implement with my students who struggle with attention deficit issues as well. Here are some just quick attention tasks to utilize in the room with patients. I have this, it starts with 4 numbers, it moves up to multiple numbers, words, sentences. I have a nice Sudoku puzzle right there. I have some difficult ones, some easy ones in there. And then I have some connect the dots. That's pretty simple. This one is counting by 5s. This one is using the alphabet. I have this attention process training activity that is using odd and even number identification, and I have the numbers in the back and an explanation of the activity here. Some word extraction activities. I used to love these when I was younger. Extracting words that are 3 or more letters from the word given. I thought that those were really cool to make it even more difficult for our clients. If they are able to do these pretty easily, we could time them and see how many words they could get. And then here we have charts that have to be completed. These require them to read codes, and I have these with increasing difficulty as well. Here is a map, and the patient can answer questions about the map using the compass, and that could also be used for orientation, but I really liked it for attention because it has the visual there, and it would require that the patient pay attention to that visual. There is another one. That one is of the United States. I have a crossword puzzle, a few of those. And then I have some search out words. These are just word searches. Unscrambling sentences. These are also something that I liked. And then there's unscrambling words and then matching them to the correct category, which could be a little more complex. I included this I Spy activity for patients who may have more severe injuries or disabilities. And the reason I included this, even though it doesn't look exactly easy peasy, on the back it actually reviews bird, cat, dog, fish, horse, mouse, rabbit, turtle. So we could review that with the patient first and then help them be able to do this. I would actually probably use an iPad or a more colored picture with clients or patients, but that is just my preference. But if we were doing this activity, I think that it would be one that would be good for an individual with a more severe attention deficit. Here's some brain training activities that I found. It just helps with auditory attention and auditory processing. I've included this floral coloring book. It has a lot of different things, and then there's also a free music download, and I really like that because I think that music is one of the things that we take for granted in regard to our attention and our memory. I have this one, which has color by number, dot to dot, mazes, creative coloring, which would be great for attention as well. And then here's another dot to dot activity book that has a lot of things. Crossword puzzles for attention, and that could also be used for some of that more complex reasoning. And then I also have a word find companion. My grandmother actually uses word finds all the time, and I see that it definitely helps with her attention. All right, the next thing we have is orientation. I have the Montreal or Mocha, and I have that in multiple formats. I also wanted to include the goat, and I forgot to print that out, so those are the two that I would likely use for our orientation questions. The first resource that I have here for orientation is a calendar. I find that my patients that are in the acute care setting, they often answer incorrectly the first question on the slums, and it's because the nurses don't always keep up with the calendars that are in front of them in their rooms. So for orientation, I think that it's essential that we have either a notebook that has a calendar or a planner that has a calendar in it, or we could just have a little calendar packet or one of the calendars that we hang up in the room. So that would orient them to the day, the month, the year, days of the week, and different stuff. I have some calendar work. I often take just a printout sheet of a calendar in the room with my patients and ask them questions such as what day of the week is it, and then some year questions, and using those visuals are essential. And there's some more of the calendar work on the back there. Here's some functional carryover activities that can be used: writing messages or daily journals, making sure to include the date, use calendar as needed. A lot of people actually are using their cell phones as means of keeping oriented to what day of the week it is and when they have certain appointments, and I think that that's great, but it's always not relevant to some of our elderly clients or those who cannot afford a cell phone. So let's see, that has us at, for this section 2, 3. Here is daily schedule. This will help with temporal orientation, memory, and problem solving. A lot of the patients that I see don't always remember what time they need to go to breakfast or what the first thing they did today was. And I also like that these activities use the functional carryover activities. Those are great. Here's some understanding, predicting, and recalling time. This is like when your doctor's appointment. These are just going to be prediction problems using their problem solving, but also ensuring that they understand temporal orientation. Here's another. This one is like, what time do adults usually go to bed? And there's really not a lot of wrong or right here, because each client our patient's going to answer differently depending on when they typically do things. Here's another one, that a client can provide logical and appropriate times for following activities. Here's some spatial awareness. This one, it tells clients what to do in this. Some temporal awareness. Here's our clocks. I also could include clocks that are already completed, and maybe have the client tell me, okay, it is 3 o'clock. What is something that we typically do at 3 o'clock? Or it is 9 p.m. at night. What is something we typically do at night? There's some more temporal awareness. This is going to require some higher order thinking. What time do you usually wake up in the morning? And then they would have to fill that out. Here's some temporal awareness questions. How long ago were you born? If I'm 40 years old, how many years are we apart in age? I find that a lot of clients, or patients in acute care, they have a really hard time with their age and birth date and different things like that. Spatial orientation, recall, where are you, what building are you in? I don't know what it is about the hospital, but it seems to make a lot of people confused, so this would be really good. Here's some location and direction activities. We could actually do some role playing with our patients or clients if they have the ability to be moving around or walking around the hospital. We could even help them in their room with, okay, where is your cup on your meal tray? And work with them on different things like that to help them understand location and direction. Here's some maps. I find that a lot of the clients who have issues with orientation may also have some issues with reading maps and knowing how to get to and from different places. So I think that this is really good. Here is a map, and then on the back, a map, and then I also have questions about the map. Let's see if we can, like there's map 1 questions, and I flagged this one as something for our more severe patients, especially this particular map, because it starts at level of easiness and then it moves up to more difficult things. So this would be something to do, just maybe not this exactly, but we could also do it like in the room. Where is the bathroom? Where is this? And then we could progress up, if the patient was able to these little more complex activities. So that's another flagged activity. That is my second one. All right, now we have memory. The tests that I've included for memory are the RIPA. I've actually been able to give this to 2 outpatient people this summer to see how their memory is working. And then I also included the slums. One of the parts of the slums that I have found that most of my patients have difficulty with is the part where they are asked to recall have the delayed recall of the 5 items. So I really like using the slums to see how well our patients' memories are working. This is one of my absolutely favorite activity books to use for memory, especially for my gentlemen. I have a deck of cards that I take with me, and then I just have different activities that I use. Banana split, ask the client to choose a card and place it on the table. Tell the client to say banana the next time he sees the card. I have found that sometimes I need to modify this activity and type up the directions, because a little bit of it is a little difficult for some of my patients to understand, but especially my elderly men or middle-aged men who like playing cards. They have seemed to really enjoy this, and it's helped transition into some of the more complex memory tasks that we work on during therapy. I included excuse me, I included the memory training program that you gave us activities for. So there are 2 activities so far. Here's some memory tasks, naming tasks. We have the alphabet, we have all of these. I find that these are more difficult if we add timing to these. I don't always do that, it's just dependent upon the client. So there's some more of those. Here is some like general information about an individual's memory. If we want to ensure that they understand who they are and information that's pertinent to them, these are some questions we could ask. We have these category fill-ins. This is a little this one says easy, but for some of the patients that I see, something like this could be complex for them. There's some more category fill-ins. I like that it includes the words up here so the client or patient isn't having to pull everything from their brain. I feel like that helps. And it's also important to note that some of our patients may have no idea who poets are or fairy tale characters, so we will just have to use our best judgment and go from there with what we think is good for them. All right, we have the divergent naming of categories and things that you do in the winter, and it has actually given the letters that something can start with, like skiing or sledding, skating, for things that we do in winter. And this would be super complex for some of our patients who have severe memory deficits, and they would likely need a lot of cues. Here's some divergent naming categories. This is easy. It says it's just naming items in each category. Just so we didn't include any timing of this activity, I think that a lot of patients would be okay. Here's some convergent naming activities. We have black and white, eats bamboo shoots, native to China, endangered. That's going to help them with recall of information. I have just a resource for me more than my patients about executive function and memory cognition changes that occur. Here's some immediate memory activities. We've got just 2 words and different things. So let me go back really quick and count so I'm not making this difficult for you as you are scoring this. So there's 1 activity, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Choosing, and this is 9, choosing specific word types from paragraphs. Judging is important of information to remember. Taking notes from materials presented aloud. And then I have these grouping objects for recall. I like that these are big. I really enjoy, I have a deck of everyday objects that patients may be exposed to on a daily basis that I like to utilize. They are actually from my expanding expression toolkit that I use in the school setting, and I really like them because they're on a nice white background, they're in full color. I found that a lot of the linguist system stuff is a little outdated and it's difficult for our elderly population to see. I have marked this one as for our more moderate to severe impaired patients. So we can work on grouping, we can even just work on memorizing what these are, what they're used for. We can just really adjust that to whatever the client is or patient is working on. And there's another page on the back. Recalling information from the picture scene. You can have the patient look at this for a few minutes and then answer these questions by still being able to look at the picture to increase complexity. You could take the picture away and just orally give or verbally give the questions and see how they do with that, depending on what level the patient is on. I have retention of a paragraph, and then I like that this includes multiple choice. Functional memory, appointments. This is one of the most important things for our memory patients, is doing things that are functional to them. So I really stress the importance of having calendars for them or planners, of having a lot of visual reminders for patients who may be exhibiting difficulty remembering family members. I really like to use memory books, although I couldn't exactly include one of those in this notebook. Describing pictures, recalling visual details, and it has the directions for this, and then it has some pictures. The next portion of my notebook is reasoning and problem solving. I have the scales of cognitive ability for traumatic brain injury, or the SCAPB, as one of my tests, and then I also have the functional assessment of verbal reasoning and executive strategies. I am not crazy about this assessment, to be honest with you, but I also see its relevance for our less impaired patients who may just have a TBI or who may be experiencing a little bit of cognitive decline and deficits in their day-to-day living. So I have marked this one for our more severe patients. So I think this is number 4, maybe, or 3, I'm not sure. I realized that in the nursing home that our elderly patients might have more trouble or deficits with the everyday problem solving, like getting dressed. So it will be important for them to have visual reminders of how to do so. This isn't the most appropriate, but this is just one I printed off. I would, of course, make the pictures appropriate to my specific patient, depending on what kind of setting I was working in. This would be something that would give me the opportunity to work with OT in developing some good visual schedules or reminders for our patients who are more severely impaired. Here's some functional math: balancing a checkbook, writing checks, addressing envelopes. These are tasks that are essential problem-solving activities that we often begin to lose as we have some cognitive decline. And there's the rest of that. Here are some step-by-steps of what supplies are needed to iron a shirt, writing a letter, to go places you've never been. I really like this because it breaks it down into specific questions to ask the client or patient. Here's a functional math activity, and it has how much you are given for your budget. It has the objects, and then it has the prices, and that would require some thinking using that higher order function. This is like a whole packet, and I like to include packets because I'm a packet person. This is understanding and applying information, and this might be for our patients who, may have worked in the banking industry. These are for more people who are not as severe. Like, what is the better buy? We could use this with TBI patients. We could use this with maybe younger patients who have just started to notice a little bit of cognitive decline. What might happen if you try to move furniture by yourself. This is just understanding and applying information, and I have a whole workbook basically printed out for that. All right, here is another reasoning and problem solving activity. This is analyzing problems. So I really like this because it has visuals, and then the patient can answer the questions with your help. I just really think that this is great. There is a prescription, and that's really important for our patients to be able to keep that more higher order thinking going even as they start to decline. There's a message. I really like that activity. Booklet. Here is wrong category. This is going to be us maybe verbally giving these to our clients or patients and asking them which one doesn't belong. And then to make it more difficult, we could ask them to defend why. Here's some sequencing activities. Typically when I use sequencing activities, I like to take visuals of like anywhere from 4 to 6 step activities and have the patient show me how they would do this. I think that if I were in a long-term setting, I would do more things like recipe books and actually working through the sequencing of steps by actually completing activities with my patients. So there's some more, a little more complex. Here's stating logical conclusions. So Dad turned on the radio. He could barely hear anything coming out. Adjusting the dials did not help. What would they do? Patients a lot of times have some issues figuring out how to resolve, especially if they've had a stroke or anything that has disturbed their normal brain function, and problem solving and reasoning is often difficult for them. So here's some problem solving, answering questions. What would you do if you lost your wallet? I have actually asked this question quite a few times, and I'm always tickled at the response I get, because they all say cry, but they're typically unable to reason through what would be the more reasonable approach to that. Here we have some comparison and contrasting. This is a task that is difficult for everyone from our younger populations that we treat to our older populations. I like to use visuals, pictures of these objects perhaps, and then also the expanding expression tool works really good if I was perhaps working with a child who had a TBI in the school setting, in completing comparison and contrast activities. We have some written directions where they have to follow the direction. And then we have some deduction puzzles that are working on that reasoning, and I have those beginning with easier and then moving to more complex. Here we have multiple meaning words. That would be important for our word finding and different things like that. And then my last resource in this portion is my understanding and applying information. This is going to be, again, more difficult, and I actually think I'd already covered that, so my apologies for using that one twice. The next thing I used is my pragmatics tab, or that I covered. I have a lot of resources for this because pragmatics is something that I'm able to work with on a daily basis in the schools. So I have a pragmatic language checklist that could be used, and then I have the test of pragmatic language. I have it from 8 to 18, and then I have for my younger kids too. So if I had a child who had a traumatic brain injury and was exhibiting some difficulty with their pragmatic language, I would be able to use this. So I printed some things off, being part of a group and recognizing expectations. I tagged this one for any of my kids, or if I were in maybe a rehab center for younger individuals who were exhibiting difficulty, or even older individuals who were exhibiting difficulty controlling their emotions. I would go over the zones of regulation. I actually have that booklet. There's some zone scenarios. I would have the patient be able to draw, or student be able to draw themselves in this zone, and I really like this program because it increases self-awareness, but also increases the idea that it's okay for other people to feel differently than you. So that would be awesome for our TBI patients and clients. So sitting appropriately in the desk, if a child has had a TBI for whatever reason, that might be difficult for them in the classroom. And then I have some visuals of that. Getting the teacher's attention. Any of our kids who have pragmatic language deficits for whatever reason, this is difficult for them. It has the rationale, the objective thinking questions, activities that can be used, and then it has these, and the student would have to check what would be a good idea. We have home rules versus school rules, and I hate that I have used more activities on this portion of my domains to be directed towards schools, but I never know when an event may occur when I have a child with the TBI that's in my speech setting. I have these cool little cards that actually comes with a social inference fun deck there. It has a picture, and then on the back it has a scenario, and then you have to decide how the individual feels, and sometimes understanding the feelings of others is very difficult for our individuals who struggle with pragmatic deficits. Here I've included just a little pack of activities for the Weber Pragmatics playing cards. The purple box there is where that's in. We have basic skills, we have communication skills, we have lots of different things in this that can be utilized. It's for ages 8 and up. I tagged this one as another more severe activity, or severe activity for severe client, or easier activity. Let's see. I'm going to get one of these out. Here's one. It's like being kind, and then it has visuals here, and it has 2 stories, perhaps, or 2 visual stories, and it would require that the individual kind of look at the body language and the emotions on the character's face, and then they would be able to choose if that is correct or incorrect ways to be kind. So I just included that in there. Then I have this interactive social skills notebook for middle and high school. And this has everything on the back: letter to buyer, behavior strategies, social thinking, body language, people flies, having conversations. I really love using this with any of my kids who have pragmatic language deficits. And this would be awesome to use with any individual who has deficits with, as a result of having a traumatic brain injury. Here is another social group curriculum for middle and high school students. And it comes with a nice set. Let me see. Here it is. It starts with like having conversations, appropriate talk. It's really, really great. And if our kids are exhibiting difficulty with having conversations, or even adults, it's beneficial to have that as well. And then I also included, for my pragmatic, this social behavior mapping. I think that this would be good for both kids and adults. I actually use this a whole lot in the schools, and it really helps my students understand expected behaviors, how they make others feel, consequences, how you feel about yourself. And then that's expected, and then we have some unexpected behaviors. And we also have the context, and I really like this book because it includes things like the actual time of doing homework, things that may be working in a small group, and it breaks it down. I always have the students do their own first, but then I will review these with them. Okay. And then I also have for this a social language program. It has, again, some pictures, and then it has questions, and it has the answers on here, so it would be easy to just use this as a flip book to do a quick activity on the go. Really like that a lot. Next tab is my prevention articles. This one was published in 2015. The potential for prevention of dementia across 2 decades, the prospective population-based Rotterdam study. My next one is a case for the implementation of cognitive communication screenings in acute stroke. And as you can see, let me see. This was published in 2014 in the American Journal of Speech Language Pathology. And while this doesn't exactly say prevention, I think that it's always important for us to do cognitive communication screenings in acute stroke patients. And I'm finding in the acute care setting that that isn't always the case. So this would prevent them from having more severe cognitive deficits in the future, and also provide some early intervention for these patients. So I really, although not exactly prevention, it is prevention. This was, let me see, this was in 2017, in the American Geriatric Society Journal, Prevention of Alzheimer's Disease, Lessons Learned and Applied. It just reviews everything that we've learned thus far and what has worked, what hasn't worked exactly. This was published in 2015, and it was in the Journal of Nursing Measurement, and it's preliminary reliability and validity of exercise benefits and barriers for stroke prevention scale in an African American sample. I think that it's important when we're looking at research to kind of break it down to see what or who of our clients may be impacted, and we treat clients of all races and creeds, so we need to be aware of how things may be impacting them and prevention, how it can impact them. Here is another one. This is helmet use in winter sports activities, attitude and opinion of neurosurgeons and non-traumatic brain injury educated persons. I think that this could be prevention because it would be important for us to be able to know what the thoughts are, because I'm sure we would find that, of course, neurosurgeons think it's important. We have this art therapy and music reminiscence activity in the prevention of cognitive decline. This was published in 2017, I believe. Yes. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I included 6 because the one about TBI was published in 2010, and I just wanted to err on the side of caution. There is my cognitive linguistics on-call notebook. So I like that I've covered not just the geriatric population, but also the younger or working age individuals, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Thanks.